Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Mavidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, may the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace. Peace and beneficence be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. Well, good evening, everyone, and namaste. Welcome to our first session of reading and discussing the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. The translation is by Swami Nikhilananda, and we will read an extensive introduction to the Gospel by Swami Nikhilananda, but we'll begin this evening with a foreword by Aldous Huxley. And as has been the case on Tuesdays, our very capable and loving reader is Haima Naidu, who, though she's located in Denver, is very much a part of this congregation and very much a part of our Tuesday evenings. So before we begin, are there any concerns or questions or anything that anyone would like to say about their experience of the gospel? All right, dear Haima.
Okay, thank you, Brother Shankara. Good evening, everyone, and namaste. The Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. It's 1,024 pages, the whole PDF is. I'm starting on page 1. It says Sri Sri Ramakrishna Kathamrita. Katha means story, Amrita means immortal beverage. So it's a Sri Sri Ramakrishna's Kathamrita by Mahendranath Gupta. Here in this book, it's referred as M, his disciple. Translated from the Bengali by Swami Nikhilananda. So we have a foreword by Aldous Huxley. In the history of the arts, genius is a thing of very rare occurrence. Rarer still, however, are the competent reporters and recorders of that genius. The world has had many hundreds of admirable poets and philosophers, but of these hundreds, only a very few have had the fortune to attract a Boswell or an Ackerman. When we leave the field of art for that of spiritual religion, the scarcity of competent reporters becomes even more strongly marked. Of the day-to-day life of the great theocentric saints and contemplatives, we know, in the great majority of cases, nothing whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Many, it is true, have recorded their doctrines in writing, and a few, such as Saint Augustine, Suso, and Saint Teresa, have left us autobiographies of the greatest value. But all doctrinal writing is, in some measure, formal and impersonal, while the autobiographer tends to omit what he regards as trifling matters and suffers from the further disadvantage of being unable to say how he strikes other people, and in what way he affects their lives. Moreover, most saints have left neither writings nor self portraits, and for knowledge of their lives, their characters, and their teachings, we are forced to rely upon the records made by their disciples, who, in most cases, have proved themselves singularly incompetent as reporters and biographers. Hence, the special interest attaching to this enormously detailed account of the daily life and conversations of Sri Ramakrishna. M, as the author modestly styles himself, was peculiarly qualified for his task. To a reverent love for his master, to a deep and experiential knowledge of that master's teaching, he added a prodigious memory for the small happenings of each day and a happy gift for recording them in an interesting and realistic way. Making good use of his natural gifts and of the circumstances in which he found himself, M produced a book unique, so far as my knowledge goes, in the literature of hagiography. Did I say it right, Brother Shankara?
Hagiography.
Hagiography.
The stories of saints. Hagiography is the study the stories of saintly personalities.
No other saint has had so able and indefatigable. Indefatigable, yes, exactly. Indefatigable. That's right. Sorry. No other saint has had so able and indefatigable a Boswell. Never have the small events of a contemplative's daily life been described with such a wealth of intimate detail. Never have the casual and unstudied utterances of a great religious teacher been set down with so minute a fidelity. To Western readers, it is true, this fidelity and this wealth of detail are sometimes a trifle disconcerting. For the social,
some people do remark on the fact that there's a great deal of repetition in the gospel. We have to remember, as we'll learn, that the master himself copy edited this book with Mahendranath Gupta M, and the repetition is intentional. That's the opinion from here. It is very intentional because we need this repetition to get the lesson through the fog of our ignorance. And the master is ever at pains to dispel our ignorance. That's what he came for, to dispel our ignorance and thereby set us free, to liberate us. That's what he came for. And that's what it says in the evening prayer, breaker of this world's chain. He came to unchain us and set us free. Unchain us means separate us from our karma. Our karma is the result of our ignorance. And so, and our belief in our karma and in ourselves as separate beings is part of our ignorance. So these are all the things that the master came to do, and it's clear from this book that he believed that there were certain lessons that needed to be repeated again and again and again for us to get the message and as he says himself, assimilate it, not just know it intellectually, but assimilate it, that is, digest it and make it a part of ourselves. Anything else from anyone while we're paused? All right. Hi, my dear, please go on.
To Western readers, it is true. This fidelity and this wealth of detail are sometimes a trifle disconcerting for the social, religious, and intellectual frames of reference within which Sri Ramakrishna did his thinking and expressed his feelings were entirely Indian. But after the first few surprises and bewilderments, we begin to find something peculiarly stimulating and instructive about the very strangeness and, to our eyes, the eccentricity of the man revealed to us in M's narrative. What a scholastic philosopher would call the accidents of Ramakrishna's life were intensely Hindu, and therefore, so far as we in the West are concerned, unfamiliar and hard to understand. Its essence, however, was intensely mystical and therefore universal. To read through these conversations in which mystical doctrine alternates with an unfamiliar kind of humor and where discussions of the oddest aspects of Hindu mythology give place to the most profound and subtle utterances about the nature of ultimate reality is in itself a liberal education in humility, tolerance, and suspense of judgment.
Please go over that sentence again.
I will read that. It's a very long sentence without any period.
No,
It's interesting.
Just the end of it, dear, about
Yes.
what it reveals to us. Just the end of the sentence.
End of the sentence. Okay, I'm trying to see. Well, I'll read it from, this is only 4 lines. To read through these conversations in which mystical doctrine alternates with an unfamiliar kind of humor and where discussions of the oddest aspects of Hindu mythology give place to the most profound and subtle utterances about the nature of ultimate reality is in itself a liberal education in humility, tolerance, and suspense of judgment.
A liberal education in those 3 aspects. It's ending in suspense of judgment. We have to be generous in our listening and not push things away because of their unfamiliarity. As Sri Ramakrishna said, I have many disciples in the West. I have many followers in the West. I do not speak their language. So he spoke in this homely village Bengali that he brought with him from Kamarpukur. And it was eccentric and strange even to the intellectual elite and cultured people of Calcutta. It was not a grammarian's Bengali. It was not formal in any way. It was full of the most simple and straightforward metaphors. We'll see as we go along. It's charming. But it is a liberal education. Thank you, Harma.
Sure, Brother Shankar. We must be grateful to the translator for his excellent version of a book so curious and delightful as a biographical document, so precious at the same time for what it teaches us of the life of the spirit. That's his foreword by Aldous Huxley.
Aldous Huxley was, of course, a disciple of Swami Prabhavananda, and had written a preface to Swami, or foreword, or whatever it was, to Swami Prabhavananda's a commentary and translation, a translation and commentary on the Gita, Bhagavad Gita. And so Nikhilananda recruited him to do this as well. It gave an imprimatur, a blessing of intellectual credibility to these works because of the reputation of the Huxley family. It wasn't just Aldous Huxley, he was part of this large family of very highly intellectual and scientific, in many cases, individuals that their work and their thinking was very highly respected in intellectual circles in the United States. And so when they wrote a foreword or preface or whatever it is to a book, it was automatically assumed that one could take that book seriously from the very first words in the book. Anything else from anyone about what we've heard so far? All right, dear, please read on.
Okay, now we're moving on to preface by Swami Nikhilananda. The Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna is the English translation of the Sri Ramakrishna Kathamrita, the conversations of Sri Ramakrishna with his disciples, devotees, and visitors, recorded by Mahendranath Gupta, who wrote the book under the pseudonym of M. The conversations in Bengali fill 5 volumes, the first of which was published in 1897 and the last shortly after M's death in 1932. Sri Ramakrishna Math, Madras, has published in 2 volumes an English translation of selected chapters from the monumental Bengali work. I have consulted these while preparing my translation. M, one of the intimate disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, was present during all the conversations recorded in the main body of the book and noted them down in his diary. They therefore have the value of almost stenographic records. In Appendix A are given several conversations which took place in the absence of M, but of which he received a first-hand record from persons concerned. The conversations will bring before the reader's mind an intimate picture of the Master's eventful life from March 1882 to April 24, 1886, only a few months before his passing away. During this period, he came in contact chiefly with English-educated Bengalis. From among them, he selected disciples and the bearers of his message, and with them, he shared his rich spiritual experiences. I have made a literal translation, omitting only a few pages of no particular interest to English-speaking readers. Often literary grace has been sacrificed for the sake of literal translation. No translation can do full justice to the original. This difficulty is all the more felt in the present work, whose contents are of a deep mystical nature and describe the inner experiences of a great seer. Human language is an altogether inadequate vehicle to express sensuous perception. Sri Ramakrishna was almost illiterate. He never clothed his thoughts in formal language. His words sought to convey his direct realization of truth.
Let's stop just a moment to define the word illiterate. By illiterate, Swami Nikhilananda means he was not a scholarly man. Sri Ramakrishna was not in any sense a scholar. I'm in class, I can't talk. He did not read books. He remembered everything that was ever said or read in his presence. This will have to take, again, suspend your disbelief here, suspend your judgment. It is said of Sri Ramakrishna, not only in this book, but in the book by Swami Saradananda, that Sri Ramakrishna remembered everything that was ever said in his presence. And of course, many things were read in his presence. Scriptures, both the Shruti and the Smriti, the Vedic and Upanishadic, those scriptures, and then of course the Gita, the Srimad Bhagavatam, and many other things. Some things he asked, particularly Swami Vivekananda, to read to him, things having to do with Advaita Vedanta, non-dual Vedanta. And the reason for that was so that it would educate Swami Vivekananda about it. It wasn't that the master needed any education about this. He was fully accomplished in the non-dual path. We'll hear all about that. But nevertheless, he was not a scholar. He did not speak in a scholarly way. He did not think in a scholarly way. And this is what is meant by the Swami when he says nearly illiterate. Literate in the sense of knowing the literature, having read the literature. He knew it, but not through reading it, not in the normal literate way. Any comments or questions about that?
I think he's born spiritual literate, Brother Shankara, illuminated soul. He's born with it.
Well, yes, of course.
Right.
But then Sri Ramakrishna said, I learn something new every day. He was very open about the fact that he was always learning from others, always learning from life experience itself, and learning especially directly from Mother Kali, as we will hear. Thank you, Laima. Anything else from anyone before we read on? Okay, please go ahead, dear.
His conversation was in a village, Parios.
Patois. It's a French word, patois.
I see, patois. That was the P-A-T-O-I-S, yes. Thank you. Thank you for the correction, Brother Shankara. His conversation was in a village, patois. Therein lies its charm. In order to explain to his listeners an abstruse philosophy, he, like Christ before him, used with the telling effect homely parables and illustrations culled from his observation of the daily life around him.
May I interrupt for just a second?
Please, yes, Jeff.
Please.
I'd like to comment on the village patois a little bit. I've heard in the past that some of Sri Ramakrishna's language was a little bit off color, not in a extreme way, but it's just the way village people talked. And
yes, that's true.
And that language has been cleaned up in this translation. Correct me if I mispronounce her name. Pravrajika Gita Prana?
Yes, that's right.
Was the guest lecturer in St. Petersburg for a few weeks while Swami Ishtananda was traveling elsewhere, and so I attended her lectures by way of Zoom. And she mentioned the fact that there is a group of Bengali folks who are doing a new translation of the gospel, going back to M's original notes, and including everything, what she described as barnyard humor, and all of his colloquial expressions, and nothing being cleaned up. So have you heard anything about that, Brother Shankara?
Yes, this is a fact. I don't know how far away it is from publication, but it is underway, and it is a monumental task because M himself didn't bowdlerize the master, but was sometimes a little circumspect because, and I think, as I say, the master copy edited this book we'll hear about that, copy edited the book, even though he had left the body many years before. He sat with M and copy edited this book. So we can believe that whatever is here in the way of the barnyard humor and somewhat off color way that he spoke in this village patois. M was a little delicate, and apparently the master endorsed this. So I have heard another translator is a monk, former monk, and now returned to everyday life, ordinary life, household life. His name is Dhruva, and he has translated large sections of the gospel himself for his own purposes. And he's read some of this to me. And there is a good deal of the master being somewhat more straightforward in Bengali than we have received so far in English. Thank you for bringing that out, Jeff.
That's a good one.
This is what is meant by Nikhilananda, and he was being a little delicate himself. Village patois. Well, for example, Sri Ramakrishna was told about one version of how Advaita Vedanta might be received, and what your behavior might be if you received Advaita in that way. That is to say that everything is happening in time, space, and causation. It is of no significance. It is a dream, and so there's no reason that you should behave in any particular way. And Sri Ramakrishna said something that in the gospel is translated as, I spit on that Vedanta. Well, that isn't what he said. It was more physical than that. More. Anyway, it rhymes with spit. So let's go ahead.
Mm-hmm. The reader will find mentioned in this work many visions and experiences that fall outside the ken of physical science and even psychology. With the development of modern knowledge, the borderline between the natural and the supernatural is ever shifting its position. Genuine mystical experiences are not as suspect now as they were half a century ago. The words of Sri Ramakrishna have already exerted a tremendous influence in the land of his birth. Savants of Europe have found in his words the ring of universal truth. But these words were not the product of intellectual cogitation. They were rooted in direct experience. Hence, to students of religion, psychology, and physical science, these experiences of the master are of immense value for the understanding of religious phenomena in general. No doubt, Sri Ramakrishna was a Hindu of the Hindus. Yet his experiences transcended the limits of the dogmas and creeds of Hinduism. Mystics of...
Let's please read that again. They transcended. What are the exact words starting with transcended? They transcended.
No doubt Sri Ramakrishna was a Hindu of the Hindus, yet his experiences transcended the limits of the dogmas and creeds of Hinduism.
Yes, of that time or
Yes.
any prior time. As Mahatma Gandhi said, if you wish to understand the Vedas, study the life of Sri Ramakrishna. He lived them. This is what was said by Mahatma Gandhi, of whom, of course, for whom we have a great regard, both as an intellect and as a man who was brave enough to do and say what he believed. So this gives us some other sense of what is meant by transcended, the dogmas and limits of Hinduism as was practiced in that day and in prior times.
And mother was too. Mother Sarada Devi was also very far advanced for her times in thinking, in broad-mindedness of women, culture, everything. She was so advanced.
Yes, exactly.
She was very, really.
We have to take seriously what both of them said. They were not two beings. They were one being in two forms. And so whatever we say about Sri Sharada Devi is simply an aspect of that one being. And then what we say of Sri Ramakrishna is that aspect of that one being deliberately manifested for their particular role and purposes. The master had few disciples, very carefully chosen, because each one was going to have a very definite role going forward. The mother had thousands, perhaps a couple of thousand disciples. It's really not known how many. She initiated people so often and so liberally and in unusual circumstances. So, but very few of her disciples had, as we read in the book we just finished of her, very few of her disciples, like Sarala, who became Bharati Prana, had a specific role. Yogin Ma, Golap Ma, Gopal Ma, and to a lesser degree some others, Ant Banu and so on. They had some specific role to play, but not in none of them in the sense of the masters. So they lived and performed their lives, did their lives according to what was needed, but it was one being in these two forms. So anything that we think of or say of the mother, we're saying this is an aspect of Ishwar. Ishwar is that which incarnates, that aspect of Vishnu that takes human form. And so as mother was asked, do you come with all the incarnations? And her answer was simple and straightforward. Yes, I do. Any comments or questions about that particular aspect of the master and mother? Thanks for bringing that up, Haima. Yes, the mother was very different in the way she lived and behaved and taught, but she always deferred and revered, deferred to and revered the master and what he said and why he said it. Okay.
Mystics of religions other than Hinduism will find in Sri Ramakrishna's experiences a corroboration of the experiences of their own prophets and seers. And this is very important today for the resuscitation of religious values. The skeptical reader may pass by the supernatural experiences.
skeptical reader.
The skeptical reader may pass by the supernatural experiences. He will yet find in this book enough material to provoke his serious thought and solve many of his spiritual problems. There are repetitions of teachings and parables in the book. I have kept them purposely. They have their charm and usefulness, repeated as they were in different settings. Repetition is unavoidable in a work of this kind. In the first place, different seekers come to a religious teacher with questions of more or less identical nature. Hence, the answers will be of more or less identical pattern. Besides, religious teachers of all times and climes have tried, by means of repetition, to hammer truths into the stony soil of the recalcitrant human mind.
Yeah. How beautifully said. The stony soil of the recalcitrant human mind.
Stony soil.
Yes, exactly.
Rough-minded.
It is, our mind is,
Really stony soil sometimes.
yeah, if ever you've tried to drive a stake or something with a sledgehammer into stony soil, you'll know exactly what the metaphor that the Swami is using. It's frustrating to say the least.
Finally, repetition does not seem tedious if the ideas repeated are dear to a man's heart.
Ah.
I have thought it necessary to write a rather lengthy introduction to the book. In it, I have given the biography of the master, descriptions of people who came in contact with him, short explanations of several systems of Indian religious thought intimately connected with Sri Ramakrishna's life, and other relevant matters which I hope will enable the reader better to understand and appreciate the unusual contents of this book. It is particularly important that the Western reader, unacquainted with Hindu religious thought, should first read carefully the introductory chapter in order that he may fully enjoy these conversations.
Yes, and we will go through it very slowly.
Yes.
And I hope that those of you who participate with us in these readings and discussions will be just exactly what the Swami said, careful and thoughtful, so that you understand what it is he's saying, because he's providing the context and frame of reference for something that happened between 1882 and 1886, 4 years of the master's life, 4 of the most productive years of his life, when he was just, it was just one slam bang activity after another. People coming, people going, people, we'll see all of this. But it is a very active 4 years. And M was there as the instrument of Sri Ramakrishna to record this and give us this great gift. As was said earlier, there's never been, by Huxley, there's nothing like it whatsoever in the history of spiritual thought. The Gospels of Jesus Christ were written, most of them, many years after the Master's passing. By the Master, I mean Lord Jesus Christ. And so, anyway, this is just, as I don't need to repeat what Huxley said. This book is unique. And so it behooves us to really understand, take seriously the fact that Nikhilananda felt that this introduction was very important for the Western reader to be able to understand what was said by Sri Ramakrishna. And it's even true of the younger Indian people, particularly those who have immigrated to the United States. They also oftentimes are not very deeply in touch with their spiritual roots, even though their grandmothers tried their best to teach them often, and their grandfathers too on occasion. But it was most often their grandmothers that tried to inculcate these things in them. But they were either skeptical or just not interested. They were interested in something more, quote, modern, unquote. Anything else before we go ahead and read into the introduction? All right, dears.
Many Indian terms and names have been retained in the book for want of suitable English equivalents. Their meaning is given either in the glossary or in the footnotes. The glossary also gives explanations of a number of expressions unfamiliar to Western readers. The diacritical marks are explained under notes on pronunciation. In the introduction, I have drawn much material from the life of Sri Ramakrishna, published by the Advaita Ashrama, Mayavati, India. I have also consulted the excellent article on Sri Ramakrishna by Swami Nirvedananda in the second volume of the Cultural Heritage of India. The book contains many songs sung either by the master or by the devotees. These form an important feature of the spiritual tradition of Bengal and were, for the most part, written by men of mystical experience. For giving the songs their present form, I'm grateful to Mr. John Moffat Jr. In the preparation of this manuscript, I have received ungrudging help from several friends. Miss Margaret Woodrow Wilson and Mr. Joseph Campbell have worked hard in editing my translation. Mrs. Elizabeth Davidson has typed more than once the entire manuscript and rendered other valuable help. Mr. Aldous Huxley has laid me under a debt of gratitude by writing the foreword. I sincerely thank them all. In the spiritual firmament, Sri Ramakrishna is a waxing crescent. Within 100 years of his birth and 50 years of his death, his message has spread across land and sea. Romain Rolland has described him as the fulfillment of the spiritual aspirations of the 300 millions of Hindus for the last 2,000 years. Mahatma Gandhi has written, his life enables us to see God face to face. Ramakrishna was a living embodiment of godliness. He is being recognized as a compeer of Krishna, Buddha, and Christ. The life and teachings of Sri Ramakrishna have redirected the thoughts of the denationalized Hindus to the spiritual ideals of their forefathers. During the latter part of the 19th century, his was the time-honored role of the savior of the eternal religion of the Hindus. His teachings played an important part in liberalizing the minds of orthodox pundits and hermits. Even now, he is the silent force that is molding the spiritual destiny of India. His great disciple, Swami Vivekananda, was the first Hindu missionary to preach the message of Indian culture to the enlightened minds of Europe and America. The full consequence of Swami Vivekananda's work is still in the womb of the future. May this translation of the first book of its kind in the religious history of the world, being the record of the direct words of a prophet, help stricken humanity to come nearer to the eternal verity of life and remove dissension and quarrel from among the different faiths. May it enable seekers of truth to grasp the subtle laws of the supersensuous realm and unfold before man's restricted vision the spiritual foundation of the universe, the unity of existence, and the divinity of the soul, by Swami Nikhilananda. New York, Sri Ramakrishna's birthday, February 1942. That is when I think he wrote this one. That's the end of Swami Nikhilananda's.
That's when he finalized it. Yes. So what is the date again?
It's February 1942. New York, Sri Ramakrishna's birthday, February 1942.
1942.
Yes.
Any comments or questions? Any concerns before we go on into the introduction? Okay.
Now we're moving to the recorder of the gospel, Mahendranath Gupta. In the life of the great saviors and prophets of the world, it is often found that they are accompanied by souls of high spiritual potency who play a conspicuous part in the furtherance of their master's mission. They become so integral a part of the life and work of these great ones that posterity can think of them only in mutual association. Such is the case with Sri Ramakrishna and M., whose diary has become to be known to the world as the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna in English and as Sri Ramakrishna Kathamrita in the original Bengali version. Sri Mahendranath Gupta, M., familiarly known to the readers of the Gospel by his pen name M. and to the devotees as Master Mahashay, was born
Mahashay. Master Mahashay.
Master Mahashay was born on the 14th of July, 1854, as the son of Madhusudan Gupta, an officer of the Calcutta High Court, and his wife, Swarnamai Devi. He had a brilliant scholastic career at Hare School and the Presidency College at Calcutta. The range of his studies included the best that both Occidental and Oriental learning had to offer. English literature, history, economics, Western philosophy, and law on the one hand, and Sanskrit literature and grammar, darshanas, Puranas, Smritis, Jainism, Buddhism, astrology, and Ayurveda on the other were the subjects in which he attained considerable proficiency. Wow. He was an educationist all his life, both in a spiritual and in a secular sense. After he passed out of college, he took up work as headmaster in a number of schools in succession: Narrail High School, City School, Ripon College School, Metropolitan School, Oriental School, Oriental School, Oriental Seminary, and Model School. The causes of his migration from school to school were that he could not get on with some of the managements on grounds of principles and that often his spiritual mood drew him away to places of pilgrimage for long periods. He worked with some of the most noted public men of the time, like Ishwar Chandra Vidyashankar and Surendranath Banerjee. The latter appointed him as a professor in the city and Ripon colleges, where he taught subjects like English, philosophy, history, and economics. In his later days, he took over the modern school and he spent his time in the staircase room of the third floor of it, administering the school and preaching the message of the master. He was much respected in educational circles, where he was usually referred to as Rector Mahashay. Rector Mahashay. A teacher who had worked under him writes thus in warm appreciation of his teaching methods as follows: "Only when I worked with him in school could I appreciate what a great educationist he was. He would come down to the level of his students when teaching, though he himself was so learned, so talented. Ordinarily, teachers confine their instruction to what is given in books without much thought as to whether the student can accept it or not. But M would first of all gauge how much the student could take in and by what means. He would employ aids to teaching like maps, pictures, and diagrams so that his students could learn by seeing. 30 years ago, from 1953, when the question of imparting education through the medium of the mother tongue was being discussed, M had already employed Bengali as the medium of instruction in the modern school. M, the apostle and the evangelist by Swami Nityatmananda. It's in part 1 and page 15. Imparting secular education was, however, only his profession. His main concern was with the spiritual regeneration of man, a calling for which destiny seems to have chosen him. From his childhood, he was deeply pious, and he used to be moved very much by sadhus, temples, and Durga Puja celebrations. The piety and eloquence of the great Brahmo leader of the times, Keshav Chandra Sen, elicited a powerful response from the impressionable mind of Mahendranath, as it did in the case of many an idealistic young man of Calcutta, and prepared him to receive the great light that was to dawn on him with the coming of Sri Ramakrishna into his life. This epoch-making event of his life came about in a very strange way. M belonged to a joint family with several collateral members. Some 10 years after he began his career as an educationist, bitter quarrels broke out among the members of the family, driving the sensitive M to despair and utter despondency. He lost all interest in life, left home one night to go into the wide world with the idea of ending his life. At dead of night, he took rest in his sister's house at Baranagar, and in the morning, accompanied by a nephew, Siddheswar, he wandered from one garden to another in Calcutta until Siddheswar brought him to the temple garden of Dakshineshwar, where Sri Ramakrishna was then living. After spending some time in the beautiful rose gardens there, he was directed to the room of the Paramahamsa, where the eventful meeting of the master and the disciple took place on a blessed evening. The exact date is not on record. On Sunday, where the eventful meeting of the master and the disciple took place on a blessed evening on a Sunday in March 1882. As regards what took place on the occasion, the reader is referred to the opening section of the first chapter of the Gospel. The master who divined the mood of desperation in M, his resolve to take leave of this playfield of deception, put new faith and hope into him by his gracious words of assurance as follows. God forbid, why should you take leave of this world? Do you not feel blessed by discovering your Guru? By his grace, what is beyond all imagination or dreams can be easily achieved.
Now,
And
just please repeat that.
I
About
will.
discovering your guru and what
Yes.
it means to discover your guru.
I will read this one more time.
This is the guru is the eternal teacher. The guru is not a man. It may appear as a man or woman, but it is the eternal teacher, the remover of darkness. So hear what Sri Ramakrishna says about it. This is something to take really deeply to heart.
I will read one more time. The master who divined the mood of desperation in M, his resolve to take leave of this playfield of deception, put new faith and hope into him by his gracious words of assurance as follows. God forbid, why should you take leave of this world? Do you not feel blessed by discovering your Guru? By his grace, what is beyond all imagination or dreams can be easily achieved.
There we have it. And this conversation, of course, was reported by M. There wasn't anybody else in the room at the time he had the conversation with the master. So this first conversation, do you not feel blessed by finding your guru?
By his grace, what's beyond? Yes, definitely, Brother Shankara.
So, this is a deep, deep, deep moment. And we're going to leave it there. It's 8:28. So
there's 4 lines for the paragraph, Brother Shankara.
Okay, go ahead.
I can end the paragraph right there.
Go ahead.
At these words, the clouds of despair moved away from the horizon of M's mind, and the sunshine of a new hope revealed to him fresh vistas of meaning in life. Referring to this phase of his life, M used to say, behold, where is the resolve to end life, and where the discovery of God. That is, sorrow should be looked upon as a friend of man. God is all good. It's wonderfully said.
Yes,
That's it.
we'll read that. We'll
read that again. I'll make a mark.
again to begin next week.
I'll read that paragraph again. Thank you, Brother Shankara.
All right. Anything at all from anyone about what we've read or said so far this evening? We've read the
Brother,
yes, please, Swayam.
Brother Shankara, which part of the, because in the book, I'm following along with the book, and I couldn't find what Haima was reading in the book version. In the foreword was there, but then in the introduction begins straight away with Sri Ramakrishna's life.
So I have the same issue with my book, but it's in the PDF that Brother Shankara sent out, but it's not in the book that I can find either.
No, it's not. It's not in the book. This is something added later. To these things were added later. It's not in the published book, the printed book. Anyone who wants the PDF, just write me an email and I'll send it to you as I did to Jeff. Swami Sarvadevananda sent it to Haima.
Yes, he sent me some 2 or 3 PDFs, Brother Shankara, asking me to read and come back to him whenever I finish. I finished about approximately 300 pages already this part. So, but I'm glad to read again and again and again. Really,
Oh, good.
no,
Well,
it's
we'll leave it there. As I say, anyone who wants the PDF so that they can read again what Haima just read to us, these other utterances. It's not compulsory in any way. You know, we've heard it, and the idea is for us to assimilate it. So, anything else from anyone?
Brother Shankara, namaste. Shailesh
Yes,
here.
namaste, Shailesh.
I would like to add 2 pointers here. One is that I recently visited the temple of Dakshineshwar, not recently, but a few months ago. And so it's obviously, it's a great fortune to see the temple and actually, after reading so many years, the gospel and now again visiting it, it reaffirms and, it helps to visualize what happened where. And it's an amazing experience. But if anyone has not visited that temple and are still, reading the gospel or, will be on this class, I suggest that you look at the videos or the photos online of the temple so that you get an idea about what is happening. It just helps to visualize, and it just it helps to develop that mood. Where is Sri Ramakrishna, how he's walking towards the Kali temple and the Nath Mandir. So Nath Mandir's experience, there is a big hall in front of the Divine Mother, and where Sri Ramakrishna, it used to be empty because it was a new temple and it was way outside back then. And so he used to walk there, and he used to walk back and forth, and it's about I think it may be about 30 to 40 feet long. It's huge, and about at least maybe 40 feet long by 25 feet at least or so, around that. And so now there is so when I went there was this bhajan going on, and I just went and sat there, and it just melts, your ego, your personality just melts into that. And it was so wonderful. I didn't understand what they were singing because it was in Bengali. And same experience I had outside the Nahabad, because the Nahabad also people sit there and sing bhajans. And also now the Thakur's room is, but the Nath Mandir, they have not changed the stone and everything, so that just sitting there on the floor where Sri Ramakrishna walked, it's amazing. So it just being there is wonderful. But those who cannot go, I will suggest that just look at some photos, pictures, and videos. Because they won't let you take the phone now. That's one thing. And second thing is, I have an application of Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, which is not published by the order, and it's published by some devotees, and it's in English. And I read it, and I've been reading it for about 3 or 4 years now. And whenever I find time, I may have completed almost now, whenever I find time. But sometimes it's very crude, like what Sri Ramakrishna talks is very to the point, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes I feel it. It's better that I should not have known it, like the words he used or that feeling or expression. And sometimes I feel that it's good. So now this is with me for all these years being devoted and very much devoted and in love with Sri Ramakrishna. But just a pointer to share that it may not be, think about all this published work that they are talking about after 50 years, people, when they look at it, they say, yeah, he says he speaks on Vedanta. I don't know. There is a mixed feeling about that work. So that's all I wanted to share today. Thank you.
Thank you, Shailesh. And of course, not everyone is going to be able to visit Dakshineshwar in person. The suggestion by Shailesh that you look at the videos and photographs so you get a sense of where it was that he lived, and spent, he moved there when he was 19, and 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 lived there until age 50, when he moved to two other places in succession, and he ended his life at a place called Kashipur. But we'll get to all of that. But if you want to get some sense of where he lived and walked, and there are photographs of his room, there are photographs of the Nat Mandir, the Nahabat, where Holy Mother lived, and of course of the Kali temple itself, the Kali that he worshipped and came to have as his chosen ideal, his teacher. She was the eternal teacher for him. So anything else from anyone?
Brother Shankara?
Yes, dear.
Yes. Regarding that language, I read somewhere that the colorful language that Sri Ramakrishna used he was talking to a bunch of teenagers. I mean, his devotees at that time were like 18, 17, like really young. And I guess to relate to them, or that's what I read somewhere. And secondly, language is just an expression. Nowadays, people use words that didn't exist then, and to get lost in that, rather than the purity inside of Sri Ramakrishna. I think that we need to pay attention to.
You're absolutely right, Swayam. We don't need to concern ourselves over much. But let's be clear, he was not speaking just to teenagers. He spoke to the intellectual elite of Calcutta. They came to him, particularly after Keshav Sen became his disciple. The intellectual elite and he did not change his language in order to speak with him. And they were sometimes shocked by how he dressed, shocked by how he looked. He didn't look like a sadhu. He didn't look like what they'd expected a holy man to look like. He looks like the picture we see of him in the shrine pose. Very simple. No long beard, no long hair, no wise expression of gazing into the distance, all that business. He was just as simple and straightforward with the intellectual elite of Calcutta as he was. And this is very much reflected in what we'll see. But as Nikhilananda said, he cleaned it up a little. And
Brother Shankara, I would like to. I agree with Swayamji, because I remember, and Tukaram, right? And Tukaram is from the place where I was born and brought up, about half an hour from there. And he used this word very. Some of the words which he used, they are now profane. Like DICK. He used to say, "What a DICK you are." What is, and it's written there continuously in his writings. Now, in my language, if you use that, I mean, that's what it is. Someone comes and if you say, what DICK you are, if you say at the center, then it would be very, so I agree with her that some of the words they used, it was a part of the culture, but now after 200 years, or now for Tukaram has been 350 years, but for Thakur 120 years, 30 years. That's little not,
yeah. Well, we needn't concern ourselves too much.
All right.
We're going to read what M wrote and Nikhilananda translated into English for us. It contains the master's spiritual teachings. The fact that there's some off-color language left out, so what? So we'll leave it at that with regard to the language. Anything else from anyone about anything that we've read or said?
I think Swami Nikhilananda prepared us. He does use some village patois, which is slang language, a couple of times. Since I read it once, 300 pages, I have seen some of those.
Oh, yeah.
So prepared us. Be ready for this. That's all he did. So it's
Yeah.
nothing wrong in that.
Yeah, the village patwa in which Sri Ramakrishna spoke, unless one were to change what he said, it has to be translated because that's how he spoke.
That's right.
Unless you were going to, commit the worst sin of a translator or interpreter, which is to make the person into something they were not, which has been done by biographers, as we know. Anyway, enough.
Thanks.
So I'd like to offer one little thought that just came to me, and that is that translating is an imprecise art anyway, to go from one language to another. And even if you don't consider translation, words are imprecise.
Yes.
So if words are imprecise, so are bad words.
Yes. And let's not concern ourselves so much about the bad words.
Exactly.
I mean, holy smokes. All you have to do is read a little Allen Ginsberg. You'll get all the bad words you want. So Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ki Jai. All right, then we'll just leave it at that for tonight. Take it up next Tuesday, Mother willing. Om Hari Om. Om Sato Ma Satgamaya. Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya. Mrityorma Amritangamaya. Abhirabhirmaiti. Oh, dearly beloved, lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from this realm of endless noise and relentless confusion to thine abode of silence, serenity, clarity, and peace. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from darkness and ignorance to the brilliance of thy wisdom and love. Lead us from death to immortality. Light us through and through, light us through and through with thy everlasting, shining presence. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ki Jai. Durga Durga Durga. May we be safe, may we be healthy, may we be cheerful. May we have peace of mind. May we be always and know we are always in the loving and protective embrace of the Divine Being as our Mother and Father. So until tomorrow evening when we'll take up the Gita, and Saturday when we'll study how to know God, and then next Sunday there'll be a talk, of course. And just a reminder, we're celebrating the Sri Ramakrishna's, the Master's birthday, on February 26th. Aditya Chaturvedi plans to be our pujari. Though the Master's birthday this year actually, by the lunar calendar, happens on February 21st, so that the most people can join us. We'll have the celebration of his birthday on the 26th, this Sunday, the 26th. Any final thought from anyone? All right, dears.
Good evening.
I hope we just get entranced by what the master is saying, and forget all about this business about dirty words. It's just not significant. All right, dears.
Good night.
Good night,
Good
Brother
night.
Shankara. Good night, everyone.